This week on the Inkwell, we're taking a look at Diamine Burgundy Royale. This is a part of their 150-year anniversary ink set, consisting of 13 colors and a rather unique triangle-shaped 40ml glass bottle. Honestly, I like this bottle because it's a unique shape. Kind of the same reason I like the Colorverse bottles, even though they do a horrible job of fitting in a cabinet. But back to the Burgundy Royale. Now, when I see the Burgundy Royale sample here on my color ring, I'm actually reminded of two other inks I have in my collection, and that would be the 2018 Franklin Christoph Special Ink and Rohrer & Klingner Morinda. Now, here's why I say it's kind of a combination of the two. So if you take the red of the Rohrer & Klingner and morph it with the dark purple of the Franklin Christoph, it actually reminds me a lot of what I think would be the outcome, which is the Burgundy Royale. And I'll admit my color science could be off, but it looks close enough to me that every time I look at that ink, that's what I see. Your results may differ. Now, for the writing sample, we are using my Pelikan M800 Stone Garden with a broad nib. Now, I haven't done a review for this pen yet, but there is one forthcoming. And the biggest reason I like this combination, I think that the red of the Burgundy Royale actually matches up perfectly with the Stone Garden pattern. And this nib is actually what I would consider a true broad. It doesn't widen as much as Pelikan nibs are known to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at the writing sample here in our Endless Works Tomoe River paper notebook. So you can see that the broad nib does allow for the Burgundy Royale to show off what I would consider a very pleasant shading profile here, from a light red to a dark burnt red. And I really find this color soothing, especially with the different properties that we get when you look down at the ink blotch here from the drips. I actually like the shading and sheen that would lend this ink to artistic purposes as well. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the close-ups of the writing sample. Now this ink, as many other Diamine inks, is actually very well behaved. You can tell that there's very little feathering, if any at all. And the dry time, especially on Tomoe River, was admirable at between 15 and 30 seconds. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this color profile. I really like that Burgundy Royale gives us a lot of different looks with the ink depending on what medium you're using. So when we look at the nib sample, we get a little bit of the shading on the wetter portions, which really comes through on a broad nib, but it's still a pleasing red on finer nibs. Then you get to the drip, and you got a lot of the reason I compared it to the Franklin Christoph 2018 ink as well as Morinda. Now on the swab, we do see that the shading is also just as subdued as the nib sample, so it's really the drops where it shows through. Now let's go ahead and bring it around to the writing sample, which we are doing on our number 16 Rhodia dot pad. And this sample was left to dry for about 48 hours before doing this test. So we're just going to go ahead and get a rather generous amount of water on the paper. Sorry for the focus breathing there on the lens. Working on getting one that doesn't do that as much. And now that we've got the water there, we're going to go ahead and let it sit for a few moments, and then take a cotton ball, and we're just going to go ahead and work the water into the paper and see how much of the ink that we can get to come up with the cotton ball. Now, I think I may have been a little bit spoiled by the Diamine Cherry Sunburst, and I thought that we were going to have a little bit better water performance here. But even with how much of the ink came up, the water resistance was still pretty good, about a 2.5 out of 5. You didn't lose all of the legibility, so it's still recoverable if this was a spill situation. And with how picky I am about my inks needing to be able to hold up underwater so I can recover things, that actually turned this ink into a regular rotation ink for me, even though it may turn up as a con. Speaking of which, let's look at the pros and cons for Burgundy Royale. So first and foremost, the price is really good on this ink. We're talking $16 for 40 ml, and it's a good color, which, by the way, that's pro number 2. I love this deep red, and the combination of that red with the Stone Garden Pelikan is just a perfect match for me. The third pro is the flow. This is a really good flowing ink, and I haven't had any trouble with it whatsoever. Now, for the fourth one, this is also key for a lot of people. This ink does not feather. I even tried it on some copy paper at work. Once again, I need to get some of that to bring home, and it didn't even feather on the cheap copy paper, so that is a huge pro. Now, 5, I know it doesn't have to do with the ink specifically, but I like really cool bottle shapes, and this one's got a good bottle shape. It reminds me of a slice of cheesecake, cherry cheesecake. Hashtag best cheesecake. Getting back to the pros though, the final pro for this ink is the dry time. Considering it dries in about 25 seconds on Tomoe River paper with a broad nib, it's actually really good. Now, you already know what I'm going to say for the con. I wish this ink was about a 3.5 to 4, maybe even a 4.5 on the water resistance. The fact that it's a 2.5 does mean I have to be a little bit more careful, but as far as cons go, there are worse cons to have. So what does that give Diamine Burgundy Royale overall for its score? I mean, you can probably tell from watching my other videos, I don't use straight math to figure out percentages, I just go purely off of feel. And even though this one does have a con in the water resistance category, overall, it's still gonna get a 9 out of 10 for me. It's a good color, it's a good price, it's a rather interesting looking bottle, and it's a good performing ink that would make a good addition, if not a great addition, for anyone's collection. So head on over to Pen Chalet, click on that radio podcast link at the top of the page, and enter Inktwell in the How You Heard About Us section for your 10% discount site-wide, and pick yourself up a bottle of this ink. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and check out my other videos. Also, don't forget to comment down below what you think about Burgundy Royale and any other colors that you would like for me to review. You can also follow the Inktwell on Twitter and Instagram at the Inktwell, and support the channel at patreon.com/theinktwell, which, starting this week, Patreon supporters are going to start getting videos 3 to 5 days before YouTube. So if you want early access, definitely consider becoming a patron. Between that, using the Inktwell code over at Pen Chalet, and subscribing to the channel, those are the best ways you can support the Inktwell and help us grow. So thank you guys for watching this video. I'll see you next week.